Starting 1st July, Australia's Stage 3 tax cut is coming into play, aiming to help ease the cost of living for low and middle income earners. But what's considered middle income in Australia, and where does your income fit in? Imagine we put every working person in Australia in a line with the lowest income earner working part-time at one end, Gina Reinhardt at the other end. The person right in the middle of that line makes $67,786 a year. That's the median income in 2023. So half of us make less than $67,000 a year and half make more. If we just look at full-time workers, the middle income jumps to around $90,416 a year in 2024. And if you are earning more than $169,000 annually, you are ahead of 90% of workers in Australia. Only 10% make more than that. But here's something to keep in mind. About a third of Australian adults aren't in paid work. They might be retired, have a disability, care for others, or unemployed. Because of this, the typical adult income from all sources is much lower. In the 1920 financial year, the latest data we have, it was $42,027. The median income figures for full-time adults and all workers are based on 2023 data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS, but they don't really tell us much about the top 5% and 1% of earners. So for that, we need to look at data from the ATO for the 2021 financial year. This data comes from a 2% sample of tax returns. Here's a quick snapshot. The average personal total income of Australian taxpayers is $70,458 per year. But keep in mind, this average is skewed by higher earners who make a lot more than the typical Aussie. To get a clear picture, let's break it down. The bottom 10% of people earn less than $11,718. The bottom 20% make less than $23,669 a year. 80% of taxpayers earn less than $98,974. 90% of taxpayers earn less than $134,218. If you earn more than $176,395, you are making more than 95% of taxpayers. And if you make $343,931 or more a year, congratulations, you are in the top 1%. I hope you're not working your butt off. Now, let's look at the top 5 industries with the highest total income based on the latest ABS data. People working in the professional, scientific, and technical services earn about $104,000 a year on average. The average salary of information media and telecommunications industry is about $112,000 a year. At the top, the average salary of mining industry is about $138,000 annually. Now, these numbers might make this industry seem like they have the highest pay, but let's not forget, some doctors make way more than these averages. For example, neurosurgeons can earn around $604,582 annually. If your Asian parents encourage you to become a doctor, subscribe. All right, so we talk about individual incomes, but that doesn't always paint the whole picture of someone's financial situation. For example, retired folks might only get income from their superannuation fund or other assets. Plus, many people with low incomes have spouses who earn a lot more. A better measure for this is household income, but larger households share resources so they can get by with less money per person. The ABS adjusts for this and reports what's called equivalized household income. For the 1920 financial year, the typical Australian household reported a gross income of $92,856, but after adjusting for household size, this fell to just $58,441. Now, whether you live in the US or Australia, it's hard to imagine the average income of the world's population. While the highest and the lowest incomes can skew the average, looking at global stats is still fascinating. Here's what I found. The average global personal income is $9,733 annually, which is about 14,672 Australian dollars. The average global household income is $12,235 annually, or 18,445 Australian dollars. If you're making over $100,000, around 150,755 Australian dollars, you are in the top 10% of global earners. Earning over $1 million, about 1.5 million Australian dollars, puts you in the top 1%. Monaco tops the chart with the highest average annual income of $186,000. The US ranks 7th globally, which isn't too surprising given that over 30% of all billionaires live there. Income is absolutely important, but how we use that income to build wealth is even more critical. It's not just about what you earn, but how you invest that surplus income into quality assets that can generate more income or appreciate in value over time. Many Australian households have most of their wealth tied up in their homes and superannuation. According to a study by the Granter Institute, many retirees today have little to no superannuation and rely largely on the age pension. Here's a snapshot of superannuation balances for different age groups. For the 25 to 40 age group, the typical individual super balance is $25,000, while for a household is about $60,000. The bottom 25% of this age group have super balances of less than $5,000 individually or less than $21,000 as households. 75% have less than $62,000 individually or less than $130,000 as households. You'll be in the top 5% if your individual super balance is over $158,000 or $279,000 as a household. You'll be in the top 1% if your individual super balance is over $293,000 or $473,000 as a household. The super balance does increase as people age till approaching retirement age. For the next middle age group, a typical superannuation balance for an individual in this age bracket is $90,000 and $179,000 for a household. The bottom 25% of this age group have a super balance of less than $15,000 as an individual and $57,000 as a household. And 75% of this age group have less than $215,000 as an individual and $384,000 as a household. If your individual super balance is over $626,000 or your household super balance is over $968,000, you'll be in the top 5%. If your individual super balance is over $1.3 million or your household super balance is over $2 million, you will be in the top 1%. Now, moving on to the 65 plus retirees, the typical super balance is quite different. As individuals, typical Aussie in this age bracket have zero balance, and for households, it's around $9,000. The bottom 25% of this age group have no savings in their super fund, either individually or in their households. And 75% of this age group have less than $149,000 individually and less than $260,000 as a household. If your individual super balance is over $839,000 or your household super balance is over $1.3 million, you are in the top 5%. If your individual super balance is over $1.9 million or your household super balance is over $3.2 million, you are in the top 1%. For many people, the vast majority of their wealth is tied to their home. Let's look at home equity across different age groups. For households in the 25 to 40-year-old age group, the typical home equity, which is the market value of your home minus the remaining mortgage, is zero. The bottom 25% doesn't have any home equity. If your home equity exceeds $184,000, you're better off than 75% of this group. If your household home equity is higher than $650,000, you're in the top 5%. If your household home equity is higher than $1.3 million, you are in the top 1%. For the middle age group up to 64 years old, the typical home equity is $325,000. The bottom 25% still doesn't have any home equity. If your home equity exceeds $649,000, you're better off than 75% of this group. If your home equity is higher than $1.4 million, you are in the top 5%. If your household home equity is higher than $2.7 million, you're in the top 1%. Finally, for retirees age 65 and older, the typical home equity is $450,000. The bottom 25% have $239,000 in home equity. If your home equity exceeds $750,000, you're better off than 75% of this group. If your home equity is higher than $1.7 million, you're in the top 5%. If your household home equity is higher than $2.9 million, you are in the top 1%. Now, if we add up the super balance, home equity, and other assets such as investment property, land, vehicles, and investments minus all the mortgages and debt, we will get the net wealth or net worth. Someone's net wealth depends on what they earn and their age, since we accumulate savings over time, so it's important to have the age brackets to make sense. For the younger age group of 25 to 40 years old, the typical net worth is $238,000. The bottom 25% of household has 78,000 net worth. If your household's net worth exceeds 554,000, you're better than 75% of this age group. If your household's net wealth is higher than 1.5 million, you'll be in the top 5%. If your household net worth is higher than 3 million, you'll be in the top 1%. For the middle age group until 64 years old, the typical household net wealth is 809,000. The bottom 25% has 332,000 net wealth. If your household's net wealth exceeds 1.4 million, you're better than 75% of this group. If your household net wealth is higher than 3.7 million, you'll be in the top 5%. If your household net wealth is about 7.7 million, you'll be in the top 1%. Finally, for retirees aged 65 years old or older, the typical household net wealth is 817,000. The bottom 25% has 433,000 net wealth. If your household net wealth exceeds 1.5 million, you are better than 75% of this group. If your household net wealth is higher than 4.5 million, you'll be in the top 5%. If your household net worth is higher than 10 million or almost 11 million, you'll be in the top 1%. As we've seen, the wealth and even the income thresholds for the top 10, 5, 1% in Australia highlight significant disparities among different age groups. But remember, income is just one aspect of financial health. And building wealth and financial security involves increasing your earning power by enhancing your knowledge and skills, and manage expenses, buying quality assets, investing wisely, and planning for the future. So, are you closer to the top 10%, 5%, or even the 1%? Or are you working your way up? What do you think is the number one factor that determines your income level? Is it your degrees, knowledge, creativity, mindset, hard work, or a rich dad? Leave your comment below so that I know you're one of the few who watched till the end. My name's Irene. I'll see you next week. Bye.